liked the flowers in her garden. She tended her flowers, even when they had to come and pick her off the ground afterwards because she'd be falling over. But yeah, and then she'd lay there and she'd moan and help, but Alice Hunter wasn't going to hear her, but somebody would rescue her all the time.
This was when they were living in town?
Yep.
So she'd fall in the floor?
She'd be cleaning, no, she'd be in the garden, in between the rows, picking something over, and then she'd tip over.
And she couldn't get back up?
No, she had to get help. This is them.
That's
And this is Grandpa's house.
Mm-hmm.
My dad's.
The barn is attached to the house.
I think you've seen that someplace by now.
I saw that at Irma's.
Yeah, she really, I'm not going to pull any more out.
So that's Shorty? That's Shorty.
Except this is us.
Oh yeah. That little one looks so much like Paul did when he was a baby. Who's Don?
Must be Don.
Well, now who is this?
This is the Recruiters. This is Grandpa.
Okay.
He got to come to the States. This is Aunt Sidney. This is Uncle John. Must be somebody married to somebody.
This is Tante Lancha.
Yeah, and Uncle Henry, and this is my mother.
Do you remember your grandpa living with you?
Oh yes. Yeah, I remember my grandpa living with me.
What was he like?
He was just, he didn't bother anybody. But sometimes I guess some of the kids would tease him and around the table they'd go eat money. But he was just an old man, but I know he paid attention to us. And it was Don that when they must have had the funeral, the casket at home, and when they went to take him to the church, Don was so upset. He was so very, very upset because Grandpa was going to be going, and he wanted to go with him. But and then he was just, he tried to putter around in the garden. Well, actually, when they came back from Ord, Nebraska, Dad ended up staying with Aunt Helen and Uncle Henry, and he asked Mom if he could come. So he came, and his bed was downstairs then. But he was just a nice, gentle old man.
He lived with you for several years?
Oh yeah, I don't know how long, but several years, because he had time to water the garden every now and then.
Would he help tend the garden too?
Oh yeah. Well, yes, he would, but it was like an old person. You don't do too hard of work. But he was very nice. I liked him. I didn't like it when somebody teased him, and I didn't like that at all. Fussed me up.
Did your mom have a big garden when you were growing up?
She had a good-sized garden, I would say. Yeah, it was good-sized. She had strawberries and rhubarb and stuff, but she did plant a good-sized garden.
What did you do different on Sundays? Were Sundays different? I mean, I know you went to church, but were Sundays different in terms of the rest of the week?
Dad didn't work. I don't think Dad worked on Sundays. And of course Mother probably didn't work either, just what's necessary to get the food on the table, or we'd go visiting sometimes. I remember going to Aunt Helen's, Uncle Henry's, but I think Aunt Sidney was around. No, Aunt Sidney didn't come there. She stayed in Ord. Until later she came. Later she and Ed came to Marshall. But the girls were both in the service by then.
When they relocated to Marshall?
They might have come a little earlier. I really don't know.
What would you say that your parents were most proud of?
I wouldn't dare to tell you. Wouldn't dare to tell you. The education of our children, of their children. And even Dick's antics were a joke. I mean, he liked that, I guess.
What, how would you describe the values that they raised you with or by? The values that they had in their life?
I'd say they were top notch. Yeah. Oh yeah. They did a good job. Mary and Rosemary, she decided to quit school. I think she probably met Joe by then. So Don went in the service because he was going to be drafted. So Dad said that let's get this over with, he said, so that's when Don went. And he came home every week, I think, to see Irma. He'd hitchhike or whatever to do that. He'd have somebody with him usually too.
Talk to me a little bit about how they treated other people and
top notch. Always. Always. I can't believe they ever hurt anybody or did something to trick them into doing something. No.
Did they share with you anything about their courtship? Anything about how they...
You haven't gotten that story yet?
No.
Well, when Mom came, they met at not a barn dance, but a house dance of some kind. And when Dad says when he first saw her, she had her red hair, and Uncle John was with her with his red hair. And he thought to himself, that's a good-looking couple. And later on, he asked her to go home with him. He'd take her home or something. I mean, they must have switched there a little bit in between. And so he'd come on a horse. And so he didn't get to take her home that time. But that was how they got started. And I don't think they courted around very long before they got married. I just don't think so.
Well, they were a little bit older when they got married, too, if I remember the dates correctly.
Right. They were a little older, both of them.
How did they treat each other?
Very civil and very pleasant. I've never seen him or her. Mom might have pouted to herself sometime for something he might have done, but I mean, but they were just good together. There was one time I saw her sitting on his lap, listening to the radio, and it was the only time I ever saw that. It kind of stuck with me because he was sitting there listening to his radio, and I'd come in from someplace outside, and she was sitting on his lap. I didn't stay long.
But there weren't a lot of displays of affection, I assume.
No, there weren't a lot of displays of affection, no. Maybe they didn't do that in front of us. They're kissing or they're hugging or holding hands or anything else.
What did they think of your choice of a husband?
Oh, he was just great. They liked him. I don't know, I haven't found anybody that doesn't like him. So.
And did they give you any advice for what they thought made a successful marriage?
No, not at all. Not at all.
What was your wedding like?
Well, like those Milroy weddings are. Yeah. See, I was still at St. Mary's in Minneapolis. Anyway, somebody wanted, I'm getting backwards. But my wedding was just fine. The only thing that I always felt badly about was Mother Tillman's was in Minneota at home. And she did not get to the wedding. And so I felt badly because we had to leave the wedding at Milroy there to go and sit with her or let her see us or something. That was what it was. But that took away some socializing. I just felt badly about that, but that's the way it was to be.
Anything else you'd like to share about your parents that you remember? Any other memories, any other stories?
don't know. They were just very good parents. They looked after us and helped us do what we wanted to do, and yeah,
What was their approach to discipline like?
nothing. I can't remember ever being hit or anything at all. So, no, nobody ever laid a hand on me.
But if you did something you weren't supposed to, were there consequences?
I never did anything I wasn't supposed to do.
Of course, I forgot who I was asking that question of.
No, I was directed, so I didn't get into trouble. No.
How about what kind of did Grandma make your clothing, or where did you get your clothes?
She would have made some of our clothes, yeah. She would have made some of ours, or Mom would buy the material and have somebody sew. Was probably more like it. But, I don't know.
So you always remember having plenty of the kind of clothes you wanted and plenty of food. And
I guess they were taking care of me, so can't complain about that.
when did you get your driver's license?
Oh, I got my driver's license after I was either engaged or, because Larry has a car in the cities, and one of his friends helped me get around to drive. And so I suppose I got my driver's license shortly after that.
So when you were growing up, girls didn't typically get driver's license when they were in
Some
high
of
school?
them would, yes. Some of them would. Yeah. But I don't know when Mary didn't get hers either. I don't think we got them till we were older. And, how old were you when you got your driver's license?
16, the day I turned 16.
That's what they're doing now too. 16 and get their driver's
Had my
license.
permit at 15.
Would you like a chair?
No, I'm good.
Good. Yeah, you look good.
Thank you.
Take a picture too.
No.
Okay, we're good.
Mm.
Any other questions you have?
No, it's been great. I don't have anything in my mind.
I'm sure I'll have a whole bunch later, but I don't have any more right now.
Well, you can write them to me and I'll send you an answer.
Okay.
Okay, she says.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, you're going to erase half of that, aren't you?
I think I'll have to erase the part about Mary not working.
Why?
Because you said, don't put that on there.
Oh, okay. No, well, you take it off, because well, she never did. Nobody thinks she did. She spent all day or the Saturday when we were cleaning.
She won't argue it.
Turn it off. But you can take that out.